Thank you and welcome back. We're going to talk about the Institute of Directors now, the IoD. The IoD is set to unveil its Code of Ethics for the year 2020 for members and staff of the Institute at a high-profile hybrid virtual event on Thursday, 6th of August at 11 o'clock prompt. These codes of ethics will serve as a guide for all Institute's members and its personnel on the practice of sound business ethics and principles. We have with us this morning the chairman of the Ethics Committee, Mrs. Amina Oyagbola. Thank you very much for coming. We also have a member of the Ethics Committee, Dr. Nosike Agoke.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. The Director General of the Institute will be joining us at some point during this discussion. That will be Mr. Dele Alimi. So this, Mrs. Oyabola, is going to be a high-profile event. What exactly about this makes this such a big event for the IoD?
Well, for us, it's a huge milestone. I mean, so the Institute of Directors has always had, a code of ethics. But what we've done is that as a committee, following the mandate of Mr. President and Chairman of Council, we were given a specific mandate to revise, the existing code and come up with a clear code of conduct, a code of ethics for members and also for management and staff. So this is a process that started in 2018. So it's gone through extensive reviews, a lot of research, and so on and so forth, referencing, other global best practice codes, and also looking at, the kind of codes that are available on the market, and of course also referencing the 2018 Code of Corporate Governance. And in the process, we've now come forward with this coalition, a best practice code for the Nigerian Institute of Directors. So we're calling it the Code of Ethics 2020. And what we are hoping to achieve, beyond ensuring that we set a standard in terms of ethical behavior for our members, we want to ensure for our members and for our staff, our aspiration is that, and our hope is that this Code of Ethics will be a reference point for all stakeholders who care about ethical practice and who care about instituting good corporate governance and business ethics in their organizations.
So my understanding of this, therefore, is that because it is the Institute of Directors, the directors who learn about this will go to the individual organizations and actually give bite and effect to this code.
Absolutely.
Is my reading correct?
Absolutely correct. They will cascade it, because at the end of the day, if you want to make a transformative change in any organization and in the country at large, it has to start from the top. You have to set the tone from the top. So it starts, the highest organ of any institution is its board of directors or its board of governors. So if the chairman of the board and all the other directors, including the CEO of the board, embrace ethical practice, they make it a priority for them in their institution, they will cascade that down the line, and then we'll begin to see real change happen.
Okay. Just before I come to you, Dr. Agoke, let me introduce the DG CEO of the Institute of Directors, Mr. Dele Alimi. Thank you for joining us. He joins us via Skype.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Thank you. I'll come back to you real quick, but let me take on Dr. Agoke here. Dr. Agoke, there are those who will be wondering, because before you came in, we were incidentally talking about changing the value system in the last segment here. Those who will be wondering, if a director or directors in a company imbibe this ethics, what's the guarantee that it will really cascade down even to the gate man? Would that help in any way in affecting their value system?
Certainly, just like Madam Chair said, as my chairman, like she said, there's a need for directors. Directors have got quite a lot of responsibilities, and there's a need for tone at the top. Unless the directors exhibit practices that would tell others below the line that this is the way, this is the culture, it will be very difficult for you to secure their commitment to these ethical values that we're trying to propagate. Now, directors, like she said, have got a lot of responsibilities. And those responsibilities also go with liabilities. All right, so liabilities are not limited to directors. They also extend to other officers of the company. So there's a need to push the boundaries of governance, to ensure that ethical values are actually internalized. And that, in any case, why do we set up companies? We set up companies and institute a board to help to maximize the wealth of the owners of the business and other stakeholders. Now, if businesses are not run ethically, these companies may go down. I'm sure you've read or you've heard about the $1 billion fine that was imposed on Ericsson. So I always say to directors, what will it profit a company to run a business well, and then a major ethical issue comes up, and it takes away all the profit that you've made? Then you are not achieving that objective of maximizing the wealth of the owners. So this is part of what the IoD is doing to ensure that ethical practices are present in organizations, not just in the private sector, but also
in the public sector.
sector.
I was going to come, but we'll look at all of this in a bigger scale. But let me come to you, Mr. Alimi. The theme for this launch, or Code of Ethics 2020, is doing good business is good business. I like that itself. Doing good business is good. Doing good is good business, the ethics dimension. At the end of the day, how effective would this be? I mean, it took 2 years or thereabout to have this ethics put together. Do you think it will be effective in our nation, Ashley?
Yes, it would be. And just like you said, it took 2 years because we wanted to make sure we cross all the T's and dot all the I's and present a code that is voluntarily acceptable. And it's not something, you can't do this kind of thing by compulsion. You must present something that is aspirational and that is acceptable to people. And if it's acceptable naturally and voluntarily, it is easier for it to cascade from the top, acceptance from the top, and then it cascading down to the other rank and file, so to say, of an organization. And we are quite hopeful that if our members, who are quite a number in the corporate world, imbibe and go in line with these codes, there is a likelihood, which we are very hopeful about, that this will cascade even to members, to people who are not members of the institute. And if by that we are able to sell the gospel of good business practice from in both the private and the public sector, the IoD will have then manifest that mandate that it has given itself in terms of ensuring good corporate governance in both the private and public sector. So we are very hopeful. We don't think we have wasted our time. We think, in fact, this is one of the best times to put this kind of code out there for people to know that there is a set of rules, there's a set of advice somewhere that you can subject yourself to, even if you are confused or you are challenged by a situation. So we are quite confident and hopeful that this will serve the purpose, the vision, and the mission of the Institute, and of course to Nigerians in general.
Mr. Ebola, this matter of, okay, for instance, one of the things that we'll be looking at is the whistleblowing framework. In Nigeria these days, the fact that you're getting 5% of whatever you blow on has caused a lot of whistleblowers to arise, whether true or not true. But I would like to ask the question of competition and service, where you have two companies battling for one market. Mm-hmm. Would this ethics also cover that part, this code of ethics?
Yes, it will, because the vendors, in fact, that's a very important part of the whole ethical process, because unethical practice and corruption affects all of us, and it's part of the reason why, as an economy, we are where we are. Billions and billions of dollars are being looted every day, and this money that is being lost through individuals, through corporations, in both the public and private sector. Now, one of the things that we focused on in the Code of Ethics is, trying to zero in on some of the key, what I will call, anchors of ethical or unethical practice. One is conflict of interest. The other is the gifts and hospitality process. And the third leg is whistleblowing. Now, whether, whistleblowing should be incentivized or not, there are different schools of thought, around that. In America, they believe that it's more effective when you do incentivize it. In other parts of the world, in Europe, generally they do not, but they ensure that you have an autonomous, safe channel for you to be able to whistleblow. Of course, it would affect this kind of practice. If a company has an ethics code, basically, as the DG and also Dr. Nosike have all highlighted here, what it does is that it provides guidance, very clear guidance, and it sets very clear standards and very clear boundaries in terms of the do's and don'ts, what is expected of all the employees and the staff, and what in return they expect from you as an organization. So whenever there are ethical dilemmas or there are challenges, you're not confused. It makes it very easy for decisions to be arrived at because you're very, very clear about what it is you should do when you are confronted with that situation.
Okay, just hold it there. We'll go on a quick break. We'll come back and look at what to do when you have certain situations that look impossible. Just stay with us. Thank you. We still have the members of the Institute of Directors here, Institute of Directors Nigeria here in our studio, and they're going to be launching their Code of Ethics 2020 on the 6th of August. We'll talk about that event shortly. But Mr. Ebola, you were talking about when you have a situation that is unresolvable ethically.
We call those situations ethical dilemmas.
Okay.
Where you're challenged and you're not sure which way to go. And some of them can be very, very tricky. But, the whole idea about having an ethics code is that you address you can't anticipate everything. But we've tried in the code to anticipate a lot of the generic things that we are likely to come across. And once you have that clarity and you set the boundaries very, very clearly, like for example, with the gifts policy, which is, all of us who are in organizations, we know that, especially if you occupy a very important position, the vendors, of course, want, to get the contract, be in your good books. And in the process, either before the contract is awarded or post the contract, they will want to come and present gifts. So what is the value of gifts that you can accept that will not be perceived as an inducement or a bribe? Both the giver and the receiver of a bribe, are guilty.
Yeah.
Furthermore, and so both for the organizational and the employees in the organization who breach the code of conduct, there should be consequences. But even for the vendor community, it makes life a lot easier for them when they understand very clearly, they see your code of ethics and they know what is allowable, what is permissible, so that they don't get blacklisted, and so on and so forth. So it's very important that those boundaries are set very clearly, and that's what the ethics code aims to achieve.
I found that a bit ticklish, so that they don't get blacklisted. I'm just being extending my hand of goodwill and appreciating the person who makes sure that I get this job, and then I get blacklisted because I have crossed a boundary, right?
Yeah, sure.
I am trying now. I'm not just appreciating, I am actually bribing. It gets difficult, doesn't it?
You were going to say something?
Yeah, so, if you look at the code, you'll see where we've stated that we'll be revising it from time to time because circumstances change, challenges come, and when challenges come, they help you to think again outside the box. She talked about thresholds. I'll just give you a case, something that happened with regards to gift and hospitality. A couple on Valentine's Day went for lunch. And as soon as they walked in, they saw a supplier. The lady was the key officer of the company and saw a supplier and said, "Oh, hello, what have you come to do?" "I'm here with my family." He said, "Oh, that's good. It's also my family." And supplier was about to leave with his family. And then he paid. And after he had gone, the lady and the husband were to pay. "Oh, no, that guy paid." He said, "Why?" It's against our policy. Ethical dilemma. So
was the money returned?
Should she go after the man to give him the money back? Should she go to the office to say, this is what happened? So when certain circumstances present themselves, you need to go back and think.
Yeah.
And this is why in service level agreements, you need to bring these in so that your suppliers and contractors will know, so that they won't do such things.
Uh,
That's part of what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Mr. Halime, a few years ago, the IOD made similar noise about the what they were doing about corporate governance and how that was launched and everything. How much did that affect corporate governance in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I would say, well, it's not just a few years ago. We have continuously made that noise, and we will continue to make that noise because really, that is the whole essence of our existence as an institution. Be that as it may, let me say this: if you look at the rise, the growing number of directors in corporate organizations who have joined the institute since we started that campaign, you will know that it seems our message or our gospel is catching on. And apart from that, we have also seen an increase in the interest from the public sector. We have had invitation from both the federal and some state government to train their directors, to train their key officers in the areas of governance. When you say corporate governance, there is a way it relates only to the private sector, but we're doing this also for director level officers and permanent secretaries in federal and state government. And we have had a serious increase in the membership of the institute from the public sector. And we have been invited to organize events where governments seems now to have recognized the need to imbibe good governance in the practice of things in the public sector. So I would say yes, it doesn't seem to loom large, but in our own way we keep monitoring, and we know that what we've been doing in the last few years has had good effect. And we have had very good cooperation from relevant regulatory authorities and public institutions in this area. So it's a battle that will continue. Well, let me not call it a battle now, but it's a task that will continue because we have a very long way to go. But like my colleagues in the studio have said earlier on, the Institute has committed itself to that mandate and will continue to do it. It's not an easy job, but I can tell you that we are making a difference.
Okay. Mrs. Oyawala, there are some cases where the director is the one who actually asks for gratification for whatever reason. If that is brought to the notice of the institute, what happens?
You see, we have a very clear process inside the code in terms of how discipline will be, effected against members who breach the code of ethics, and there are consequences once a case has been properly established. Once you have a code of ethics and you signed up, you have to, first of all, there's an attestation process. You actually have to make a firm commitment as a member and sign on to the Institute's code of ethics as a member. So that imposes an obligation on you, and you're essentially saying that you commit, to the tenets and the principles enshrined and embedded, in that code of ethics. So if therefore, after you've done that, you then go and conduct yourself in a manner that is unethical, then, the mechanism that has been put in place, both the monitoring mechanism, the reporting mechanism, and the disciplinary process that has been put in place will kick in, and we will act. The whole objective is, through this whole process of corporate governance and trying to institute good business ethics, is trying to ensure that as directors of the institute, we do things right. We do things the right way, in the right manner, and for the right reasons. And we demonstrate leadership. We're also trying to ensure through this process that if you call yourself a director and a member of the Institute of Directors, members of the public should be able to assume certain things immediately from that. It means you have signed on to a code of practice. It means you're expected to comport yourself and to behave yourself in a particular way, and that if you do not, members of the public can hold you to account. They can report you to the Institute and they can blow the whistle. And through that process, we're hoping that, we begin to see a change, not just, amongst our members, but as we said, in the entire landscape in Nigeria.
In other words, directors who are members of the IOD should be role models.
That's right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Dr. Agoke, let's talk about this launch in itself. It's happening on the 6th of August, right? What's it going to be like?
Well, as we've stated, it's going to be a virtual event, and we expect
Thanks
it
to
to...
COVID-19.
Yeah, well, we've learned a lot from COVID now, and we're still learning. We expect it to be a high-class event. Top personalities will be, participating. In terms of those who will be guest speakers, the chairman, well-known Nigerian. Nigeria has a role to play. But I think what is important to mention is the fact that it's not just an event. It's a process that will start with the event to begin to get people to understand that it's the right thing to practice ethics and change cultures in organizations. And that's why we're driving it through the membership of the IoD that cuts across both the private and the public sectors. So that event, is an event to Unveil, but it kickstarts a process that will go on like the DJ just said. We're starting, and it's not something that we're going to stop now. So we're unveiling two codes, the code for members and the code for staff. We believe that our members, like Madam Chair said, should be role models. And because they're role models, and in fact, when she talked about the fact of breaching the code, it does not end with the organizations applying sanctions. The IoD will also, take action where it comes to our knowledge that a particular member who is a director has breached that code. So that event is going to be an international event, as a matter of fact. Some other persons will join us virtually outside the country. So it's going to be a big event.
If I may.
Yes, please.
If I may also just add to what Dr. Nosike, has said about the event. So we have carefully curated the participants, at the event. So it's a milestone event which will kickstart a process. So the CEO of the Ethics Institute in South Africa is actually going to help to moderate, and he's an expert, a subject matter expert and a thought leader on ethics globally. And the Ethics Institute in South Africa actually certifies ethics officers, globally. I am actually an ethics officer myself, and Dr. Nosike is also one. Then we have invited, a regulator, the CEO of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, who, of course, superintends, the capital market and, a lot of the investing community who want to have confidence in Nigeria. So this is something that he will be one of the panelists. The lead speaker will be MK Ahmad, who is also very well known, and a leader in corporate governance. Used to be the DG of the National Pension Commission. And of course, the chairman of the occasion is none other than Dr. Christopher Kolade, who doesn't require any introduction and is very well respected, very well known, somebody we're all very proud of. And of course, there's the gender dimension, and an ethical leader in the person of Mrs. Bola Adeshola, who is also very well known and doesn't need much introduction. And then finally, we have the perspective of a specialist, who in the whole corruption and ethics domain, our own Professor Owasonye, who is in charge of the
ICPC.
ICPC. So these are going to be the main speakers on the day. But in addition, we have the minister, the Minister for Trade and Investments, Mr. Otumba Adebayo, who will also be giving a goodwill message. And we have a lot of going to be recordings from people across industry who will be giving short recordings on their perspective. They've said we've sent e-copies of the code to all of them. They've been able to look at the Code of Ethics and to comment on it. So we'll be having their own thoughts and their perspectives on this issue. So the advocacy has already started. The other thing, if I may mention, is that beyond just coming out with the code, it's very important for us to also mention that there's help out there in terms of building capacity and building awareness in terms of how you think about ethics and how you institutionalize ethics inside your organization. There are clear frameworks and processes for doing that. And the Institute is a reference point, Institute of Directors. We also have curated, in the process of developing the code, illustrative case studies which members and members of the public will be given access to. And those codes are being compiled and are going to be situated in the Institute of Directors for people to go and refer to, and we will continue, revise and update them in line with what we see.
Who can be a part of this? Anybody or the members on the event?
Everybody.
Everybody.
It's open to the public.
So if you want to log in, that picture that was sliding there has login details for you to register. You have to register first to be a part of. What is there an address you can go to register? The website?
Yes, the
Yes,
Institute of Directors.
Institute of Directors.
Institute of Directors
details are there.
website.
Yes.
You can get there to register. HTTP, it's at the base of that. Yeah,
Flyer.
that's what you have it.
There it is.
HTTP colon and all of that. So you go there to register. Open to the public is on the 6th of August. Time is 11 a.m. So you have to register ahead of time. But let's hear from the Director General about this event in 30 seconds before we go. Mr. Alimi, what do you have to say about the event?
Yes, thank you very much. This is to the IoD. It's one of the most important events it has held in the last decade because it touches directly the mandate of the Institute and our efforts to have a hand in cleansing the system, in cleansing our ways of doing things and our ways of doing business. And it is, I would say, a must attend for anybody that is concerned about the issue of how to run organizations properly, how to run institutions properly. And then it speaks to everybody because I'm sure Nigerians are very concerned, especially with the realities we find ourselves now. So it speaks to everybody. And you can see by the level of engagement we've had, we've engaged with almost all other part of the organized private sector. They will be there. And we are hopeful that it's going to be a successful event. But more importantly, it is important that people are able to imbibe ethics, able to acquire the code, maybe
Thank you,
on our
Mr. Dele Alimi. Sorry, we've run completely out of time. We got to go now. Thank you very much, Mr. Dele Alimi, DG and CEO of the IoD, and who joined us via Skype. And we had in the studio Mrs. Amina Yagbola, who is a fellow of the Institute and the chairman of the Ethics Committee, and Dr. Nosike Agoke, who is a member of the Ethics Committee of the Institute of Directors. We wish you all the best on Thursday, and we hope we will begin to feel the effects of the launch of the Code of Ethics 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Sunrise will be back for the home stretch in just a moment. Stay with us.